The desert looked empty, but it was already listening. In North Africa, sand became a battlefield where empires tested endurance rather than mercy. By 1940, the war had spilled far beyond Europe, dragging colonial roads, oil routes, and forgotten towns into its gravity. Italian defeats cracked open the region, inviting German intervention and British resolve. Soldiers arrived expecting glory and found heat, thirst, and silence instead. Each step sank into sand that erased footprints quickly yet remembered every mistake. This was not a side theater. It was a proving ground. Everyone sensed it. Why fight over endless sand? Because beneath the dunes lay control of the Suez Canal, Middle Eastern oil, and imperial pride. Britain needed the canal to survive. Axis leaders saw it as a chokehold on empire. Civilians in Egypt and Libya felt the tension, first trains delayed, markets thin, rumors thick in cafes. British troops dug in with maps worn soft by sweat. They feared not just the enemy, but distance itself. Supplies lagged, radios failed. In North Africa, logistics became destiny. Destiny was already slipping. Then came a man who moved faster than expectations. Erwin Rommel arrived in early 1941, quiet, alert, eyes always scanning horizons. German troops noticed his habits, standing close to the front, dust on his boots, sharing rations without ceremony. He listened more than he spoke. His orders came sharp and sudden. British units felt it immediately and expected flanking moves. Pressure where maps said none existed. Rommel treated the desert like open water, maneuvering freely. His legend began not with speeches, but with speed and fear spreading through enemy ranks. British commanders struggled to keep pace. Communications lagged behind Rommel's tempo, and confusion crept into headquarters tents. Soldiers whispered his name at night, the Desert Fox, half admiration, half warning. One corporal wrote home about attacks appearing from nowhere, his hands shaking as he folded the letter. Tanks overheated, men fainted. Victory felt temporary, defeat permanent. Yet London demanded resistance. Pride and necessity collided under the sun. The desert rewarded initiative, punished hesitation. The balance tilted with every mile lost. Rommel's advances were daring but fragile. Fuel ran low, spare parts vanished. German and Italian soldiers scavenged wrecks under fire, pulling usable metal with bare hands. Italian units fought bravely, often undercredited, sharing water and cigarettes with Germans in shallow foxholes. Air raids came without warning, sudden shrieks, then silence again. Rommel knew momentum was everything. Pause too long, and the British would recover. He pushed east toward Egypt, gambling lives against distance. Hoping speed could outrun supply lines that stretched to breaking. Across the lines, British morale wavered but did not collapse. Reinforcements arrived from across the empire: Australians, New Zealanders, Indians, South Africans. Accents mixed. Jokes masked fear. A young Australian soldier remembered the smell of tea boiling beside artillery smoke, comfort in routine. Commanders argued strategy while troops learned the land the hard way. The desert taught humility quickly. Every victory costs men. Every retreat carried shame. Yet something hardened inside the ranks. A refusal to yield completely, even as ground was lost. In London, leadership changed, and with it, expectations. The North African front could no longer be managed by cautious defense alone. Plans were drawn, erased, redrawn. Intelligence reports stacked high, full of contradictions. Somewhere in that paperwork, a decision formed. New command, new doctrine. On the ground, soldiers sensed a shift before it was announced. Training intensified. Discipline sharpened. Silence before battles grew heavier. The war was maturing. So were the men forced to fight it. The desert itself became a character, cruel, impartial, relentless. Sandstorms swallowed convoys whole. Engines clogged. Eyes burned raw. At night, temperatures plunged, and men huddled close, sharing warmth and memories of home. A British medic recalled treating enemy wounded by lantern light. No hatred left, only exhaustion. War stripped identities down to basics: thirst, fear, loyalty. Under that vast sky, uniforms mattered less than survival, and survival depended on who adapted fastest, not who shouted loudest. By mid-1942, the front tightened like a drawn wire. Rommel stood near El Alamein, so close to Alexandria that soldiers joked they could smell the sea. But jokes fell flat. Losses mounted. Supplies dwindled. British defenses stiffened. Both sides felt it that the desert had narrowed their choices. One last push loomed. Letters grew shorter, prayers longer. The sense of approaching climax hung in the air, heavy as the heat before battle. Something decisive was coming, and everyone knew it. The early dance of maneuver had hardened into a test of will, planning, and endurance. Rommel's brilliance faced limits he could not ignore. British forces prepared for transformation rather than reaction. The desert had taught its lessons through blood and silence. Now it demanded an answer. Its commanders studied maps under flickering lamps. Soldiers waited, cleaning rifles, staring into darkness. In the next phase, speed would meet structure. And the duel would truly begin, shifting the war's balance forever. A new name echoed through British camps: Bernard Montgomery. Unlike his predecessor, he spoke with certainty, not apology. Soldiers noticed immediately. He addressed them directly, promising no reckless retreats, no confusion. Montgomery reshaped the Eighth Army with discipline and clarity. Training intensified. Units drilled until movements became instinct. One infantryman recalled Monty's stare calm, unblinking, demanding belief. For the first time in months, the British line felt anchored. Morale did not soar overnight, but it stopped bleeding. The desert sensed the shift and waited. Rommel sensed it too. Intelligence reports hinted at change-tighter defenses, fewer gaps. He was ill, exhausted, stretched thin by supply shortages he could not solve. Yet retreat felt impossible. Hitler demanded advance. Demanded caution. Rommel walked among his men, sharing quiet words, hiding doubt behind resolve. A tank commander remembered Rommel's hand on his shoulder. Steady, reassuring, human. The Desert Fox still inspired loyalty, but inspiration could not refuel engines or replace lost men. Time was turning against him. El Alamein became more than a location. It became a line of fate. Behind it lay Egypt and the Canal. Ahead stood Axe's ambition. Montgomery built defenses, methodically minefields, layered deep artillery carefully ranged. Soldiers called them the Devil's Gardens. Night work was constant. Hands bled digging trenches. Sleep came in fragments. The air smelled of cordite and sand. Everyone understood the rule now. This was not about clever raids anymore. It was about endurance. Who could absorb punishment longer? On October 23, 1942, the night exploded. Artillery fire lit the desert like a broken sunrise. British guns roared in unison, thousands of shells tearing silence apart. Soldiers advanced through dust and smoke, hearts hammering. One private whispered a prayer with every step. Rommel was absent at first, till in Germany his troops fighting without him. Confusion spread, yet resistance was fierce. The ground shook. Men fell. The desert drank everything. Noise, blood, fear, without judgment. Rommel rushed back as the battle raged. Returned to chaos, units shattered, fuel scarce, orders blurred by exhaustion. Still, he counterattacked with precision where possible, squeezing value from every tank. German crews fought until ammunition ran dry. Italian units held positions against overwhelming fire, often without armor support. A wounded Italian soldier later said he stayed because retreat felt worse than death. Courage persisted, even as hope thinned. The duel was no longer elegant, it was brutal, grinding survival. Montgomery refused to rush victory. He absorbed losses deliberately, pressing steadily, knowing time favored him. Some soldiers cursed the pace, others trusted it. The sky filled with Allied aircraft, constant, oppressive. Axis troops felt exposed, hunted. Nights brought no rest. The wounded cried softly in darkness, afraid of attracting fire. A British stretcher-bearer remembered carrying an enemy soldier who clutched his sleeve, not pleading, just refusing to be alone. Humanity flickered, even while machines destroyed it relentlessly. By early November, Rommel faced the inevitable. Supplies collapsed. Orders from Berlin ignored reality. Staying meant annihilation. Withdrawal became the only choice left. Rommel ordered it with bitterness, saving what lives he could. Montgomery pushed forward, cautious but relentless. The desert shifted again, this time decisively. Soldiers sensed victory not as joy, but as exhaustion finally loosening its grip. The Desert Fox was retreating. The myth cracked, though respect remained. The pursuit westward was relentless, Axis troops fell back through Libya, harassed constantly. Equipment burned along the roads. Civilians emerged cautiously from towns, faces hollow eyes, searching uniforms for intent. British soldiers handed out rations when possible, unsure what to say. War had passed through these places like a storm. For the Axis, retreat meant survival stripped of pride. For the Allies, advance carried weight proof that sacrifice had meaning. Yet no one felt untouched. In letters home, soldiers struggled to explain victory. They wrote about silence after guns stopped, about missing friends who should have been there. Montgomery became a symbol of order restored. Rommel became a symbol of brilliance constrained by reality. Neither image captured the full truth. The desert had shaped them both, exposing limits, demanding choices. The war in North Africa was turning outward now, drawing new forces, new plans, and a wider horizon of consequence. El Alamein was not the end, but it was the turning point. The balance had shifted permanently. Axis momentum was broken. Allied confidence hardened into strategy. As armies regrouped and looked west toward Tunisia, the desert fell quiet again briefly. Soldiers sensed the war growing larger, more complex. North Africa was no longer an isolated duel. It was becoming a gateway. And beyond that gateway, another chapter waited, one that would test victory as harshly as defeat. The war did not slow after El Alamein widened. Light columns pressed west as Axis forces regrouped in Tunisia, clinging to ports and hills. Soldiers felt the geography change beneath their boots' rocky ground, replacing open sand, villages appearing like witnesses. Supply lines shortened for the Allies, tightened for the Axis. A British driver noticed fresh bread for the first time in months. A quiet sign of momentum, yet resistance stiffened ahead. Victory, it seemed, had only unlocked a harsher phase of fighting. Rommel was still there, thinner, more tired, yet dangerous. In Tunisia, he struck back at Kasserine Pass in early 1943, exploiting inexperience among newly arrived American troops. The attack shocked the Allies. Panic spread. Orders tangled. A young American soldier remembered dropping his helmet as he ran, embarrassment burning worse than fear. Rommel's counterstroke reminded everyone that skills still mattered. The desert fox could still bite, even while cornered. For the Allies, Kasserine was a painful lesson. Command structures tightened overnight. Arrogance drained away. Training intensified under fire. Soldiers learned to respect the enemy quickly, or die. Montgomery coordinated with American commanders, slowly aligning tactics and tempo. Cooperation replaced rivalry. In muddy foxholes, accents blended again. Men shared cigarettes, stories, quiet doubts. The war was forcing an alliance not just on paper, but in blood and adaptation. Rommel knew the end was approaching. Supplies were gone. Our superiority belonged fully to the Allies. His men fought with resolve but without illusions. Rommel argued for evacuation. Hitler refused. The gap between command and reality had become fatal. Rommel left Africa soon after, officially for health. Unofficially to escape collapse he could not stop. Soldiers watched him go with mixed emotions, relief, sadness, loyalty lingering without direction. The legend exited quietly, leaving others to finish the fight. The final battles in Tunisia were relentless. Axis force Iserman, an Italian, fought, stubbornly cornered between sea and sky. Civilians hid in cellars as artillery pounded hillsides. A Tunisian shopkeeper later recalled dust settling on everything: bread, clothes, memories. Allied soldiers advanced carefully now, respecting what desperation could do. There was no room for romance left in the war, only pressure, applied until resistance collapsed completely. In May 1943, it ended. Over 250,000 Axis troops surrendered in North Africa. The number stunned even the victors. Prisoners marched silently, faces hollow, some relieved, others ashamed. A British guard remembered sharing water with a German officer who simply nodded, no words needed. The campaign was over. North Africa was secured, yet celebration felt muted. Too many were missing. Too many graves lay beneath foreign soil, marked by simple stones and fading names. For soldiers, the aftermath was strange. Days without gunfire felt unreal. Some slept endlessly, others couldn't sleep at all. Letters home struggled to bridge the distance between experience and understanding. How do you explain fear that never fully leaves? Or loyalty forged in terror? North Africa became a memory shaped by extremes, heat and cold, chaos and discipline, brilliance and error. It changed everyone who passed through it. Quietly, permanently, strategically, the campaign reshaped the war. The Mediterranean opened. Southern Europe lay exposed. Plans for Sicily and Italy followed quickly. Leaders studied North Africa as a case study of logistics, command style, coalition warfare. Montgomery emerged confident, methodical. Rommel's reputation survived defeat, framed by audacity and constraint. History would debate them endlessly. But soldiers remembered something simpler, the sound of boots in sand, and the cost paid to move forward. Civilians carried their own scars. Towns rebuilt slowly. Fields were cleared of mines by hand, inch by inch. Children grew up among wreckage, learning which metal could explode. The war had passed on, but danger remained buried. Elders spoke of armies like storms arriving, destroying, leaving silence behind. North Africa returned to the margins of headlines, but not to peace of mind. The desert grew quiet again almost. What remained was memory, scattered across dunes and hills. Soldiers moved on to new fronts, carrying lessons learned the hard way. The duel between Rommel and Montgomery had ended, but its echoes traveled far into doctrine, leadership, and myth. Yet one question lingered beneath the strategy and surrender. What did all this victory truly mean, once the shooting stopped? That question would define the war's final reflections, still waiting ahead. What remained after the armies left? The desert answered with silence. Veterans carried North Africa inside them, memories triggered by heat, wind, empty horizons. A former tank gunner later said he still woke smelling oil and sand. The campaign had taught them patience, fear, and restraint. It also taught loss. Friends vanished without farewell, reduced to coordinates on maps. Victory did not erase that, it only framed it. For many, the desert became a private place they would revisit forever, alone. Rommel's legacy hardened into paradox. Admired by enemies, constrained by loyalty to a regime he could not escape, he became a symbol of brilliance trapped by politics. His African campaign was studied for maneuver and initiative, but also for the cost of overreach. Soldiers remembered him not as propaganda, but as presence close to danger, sharing risk. History would later judge his choices, but in the desert, judgment felt simpler. He was a commander who stood where men could see him. Montgomery's legacy took a different shape. He represented preparation, discipline, and patience under pressure. Some found him rigid, others trusted him absolutely. For the Eighth Army, he restored belief when belief mattered most. His victory at El Alamein became a symbol of reversal, proof that momentum could be reclaimed. Yet even Montgomery knew success came from countless unseen acts. Engineers clearing mines, medics working through nights, soldiers holding lines when fear begged them to run. Beyond generals, the campaign belonged to ordinary people, drivers who never fired a shot, nurses who memorized screams, civilians who learned to read the sky for planes. Their stories rarely reached headlines. A Libyan farmer once described watching tanks pass like metal animals, crushing fields he could never replant. War reshaped lives without asking permission. Strategy moved borders. Humanity absorbed the consequences, quietly, unevenly, permanently. North Africa also reshaped modern warfare, proved air superiority decisive, exposed logistics as the backbone of victory. It forced alliances to cooperate or fail. Future campaigns borrowed its lessons relentlessly. Yet the most important lesson resisted diagrams. War was not won by cleverness alone, but by endurance, physical, moral, psychological. The desert punished arrogance and rewarded adaptation. It stripped war down to essentials, then demanded payment in full. For those who survived, memory became responsibility. Graves scattered across Africa were tended by strangers marked by names spoken in many languages. Annual ceremonies felt distant from the heat and fear that birthed them. But remembrance mattered. It anchored loss to meaning. Without memory, victory hollowed out. Veterans aged, voices thinning, stories repeating. Each retelling was an act of defiance against forgetting, a way to keep companions alive, if only in words. Today, the desert looks unchanged. Tourists pass quietly through El Alamein, unaware of how loud it once was. Wind smooths the scars. Sand covers wreckage. But history remains beneath the surface waiting. The ground remembers. Every battle leaves an imprint, even when invisible. Modern conflicts echo familiar patterns, miscalculation, resilience. The past is not distant. It watches patiently, asking if we learned anything at all. The duel between Rommel and Montgomery was never just personal. It represented two approaches to command speed versus structure, instinct versus preparation. Neither was pure. Both were human. Their clash revealed the limits of genius and the power of organization. Yet beneath doctrine lay shared vulnerability. Both men carried responsibility for lives spent in their decisions. The desert judged neither kindly nor cruelly, simply bore witness, and moved on. War stories often chase heroes and victories, but the North African campaign whispers a quieter truth. Courage exists alongside fear. Honor survives inside compromise. And even justified battles leave wounds that time alone cannot heal. Remembering this does not weaken history, it deepens it. It asks us to look past triumph and ask what it cost, and who paid when the world looked elsewhere. In the end, the desert teaches reflection. It asks us to slow down, to listen, to remember lives once caught between orders and survival. Rommel and Montgomery fade into history, but the human moments remain. Shared water, final letters, silent marches. As we look back from a safer distance, memory becomes our duty. If these stories stirred something, pause with them, carry them forward, and let remembrance itself become a quiet act of respect, shared, reflected, and never fully forgotten.